everyone, Bannett here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're back in the Diamond DA62 in our Around the World series. Starting off today in Juneau, Alaska, where we left off last trip. And today we're going to be flying across the Rocky Mountains to Edmonton, Alberta. It's a wintry, wet, rainy day in Juneau. Take a look at the latest weather. The tower here for Juneau shows winds 120, 28 gusting 36, pretty windy, 2 miles visibility, light rain, 2 degrees, overcast 12,000, 2912 in the altimeter. So not a very nice day here in Juneau. Either way, so we have to get out of here IFR, get up above the weather, and get on our way to Edmonton. Weather in Edmonton is a little bit better. We'll take a look at that a little later. So again, thanks for joining me. Those of you who haven't joined me before, take a minute to sign up for notifications, subscribe to the channel, sign up for notifications so you'll see future videos. And at the end of the video, if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button. Really appreciate it. So let's get on board and we'll take a look at our route. So we're back in the aircraft here. Our route today is basically pretty much a straight shot to Edmonton, right over the Rocky Mountains. We have a couple, it's going to be 4-hour, 48-minute flight. We're going to do it at 17,000 feet for the altitude of the mountains there. And we have a couple of interesting waypoints here. We have some lat-long waypoints which are coded. And I'll talk about that when we set up the flight plan. This lat-long waypoint is basically 58 north, 130 west, and it's coded as 58 November 30. And we have another one here, 55 north, 116 west, which is coded as 55 November 16. There was a third one in here, and the coding didn't work when I went to enter it in the GPS, so I just removed that out of the flight plan. But some of the coded waypoints work for lat longs, and we'll show you how we enter those. Basically, it's just enter them as you see them in the flight plan. I don't know why the other one didn't work. It should work, but didn't, so I just removed it from the flight plan. There's another way you could do it. You could load up the flight plan in SimBrief, then you can save it as a Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. You can save it, just download it onto your computer, and then when you load in the flight plan, it'll load in and it'll create a user waypoint for that waypoint which isn't coded properly. So that's another way to do it, but I just wanted to do it the old-fashioned way here and just enter it myself. Okay, so that's the route we're going to be taking. So let's get the airplane started up, and we will load in the flight plan and get up on our way. Okay, we'll get the avionics master or the battery on. The avionics master will get on after because we don't need that to program the GPS right now. And let's zoom in on the GPS and get our flight plan going. So we're going to be departing Juneau, PAJN, Juneau. We're going to do it off runway 8 because of the winds, so let's enter that. And our first waypoint is going to be SSR, which is the VOR on the end of the departure that we're going to link to. That looks good. And then our first waypoint is one of those coded lat-long waypoints after that, which is going to be 58 north, 130 west, so it's coded as 58 November 8 November 30. So there you see 58 November 30 shows up in Canada as 58 North 130 West. So we can just enter that, and now we have that coded waypoint in there. The next one after that is Yankee X-Ray Juliet. Which is a VOR. Enter that, and then I'll just finish entering the flight plan here. I got one more waypoint, and then Edmonton, and then we'll just take a look at how it looks on the chart. Okay, I have the basic flight plan in from Juneau to Edmonton, SSR, the first waypoint altitude 58 130 north, and Yankee X-Ray Juliet 55 116 west, and T-tag, our destination is Edmonton. And if we look on that, that looks pretty much the general flight plan that we want to fly there. Now we'll load in the departure, and it is going to be the Juneau 6 off of runway 8, and we're going to transition to the SSR VOR, and that looks pretty good. So we'll enter that, we'll load that in. Those are all the correct waypoints. And now that is in the flight plan as well. We can zoom in on that, see how it looks. So I'll just go over the departure here. Off of runway 8. So climbing right turn as soon as practicable, so 400 feet above ground. Right turn direct to Charlie Golf Lima NDB. And then we're going to track outbound the localizer frequency, but we're going to be doing all this in LNAV on the GPS to Barlow. And then from Barlow to Sister Island VOR. Now it says here, visual conditions must be maintained after takeoff until established over CGL NDB. So this part here is a visual maneuver. You can see in the way it's depicted here. And so we're just going to do the climbing right turn, rough heading 279, direct CGL. Once we're past CGL, then we can continue to climb. So I'm going to level off at, the ceiling's 1,200 feet. I'm going to level off, and you have to be 1,000 feet or above at CGL, so I'm going to level off at 1,000 feet. So we'll fly visually to CGL, and then once we're past CGL, we'll continue to climb up to our cruise altitude of 17,000 feet. Once we're at a safe altitude, about 8,400 feet, we can make our turn direct to our route. So I'm not going to go all the way to Sisters Island here. It's a little bit of a distance to go there. The winds are out of the west, so it's going to be pretty slow going there. So as soon as we're above 8,400 feet, we'll make a right turn, left turn off to our first waypoint. So that's going to be the departure. Right now, we have that loaded in. So let's get back in the airplane and get things started up, and we'll get up on our way. Okay, we'll check that our fuel is on. Turn our engine masters on. Get our nav light on. Prime the fuel pumps. And it's clear to the right. Got a few guys standing around to the left here. So fuel pumps are good. So we'll start the right engine first. And we'll start the left engine. And we have some good starts there. T's and P's are warming up, and we'll let that warm up as we taxi out the runway. Now we'll get our avionics master on. Transponder, I'll just leave our squawk at 7,000, that's fine. And everything's all started up. We'll set our flaps for takeoff. Set the altimeter, 2913. puts us pretty good, 180 feet. It seems kind of high actually. So let's see what the altimeter was in the METAR here. PAJN is 2912. So that's pretty close, 2913. So it says 200 feet, but the runway elevation, we must be a bit above the runway. We'll check it when we get onto the runway. The runway elevation is around 25 feet. So it seems a little bit high, but we'll check it when we get out there. Okay, so now we'll get our taxi light on. And we'll taxi out to the runway. Button brakes released. So this will take us out to Charlie intersection straight ahead. That should still give us about 6,500 feet of runway or more remaining. So that should be fine. Alaska Airlines there, off to our left. Okay, now the airport elevation looks good. It's around 25 feet. That's correct. I don't know what the issue was there. So we'll just hold short of the runway and we'll just get everything finalized for our departure. Okay, I'm just going to put 1,000 feet for the altitude. We're going to do that visually. We got our GPS in there, that's correct. Just going to double check on here. How it looks. So it's got the climbing right turn as soon as we're able. Okay, so that's all set. Got our flaps at takeoff, got our fuel pumps on, taxi light off, landing light, strobe light on, heat on, and we're just going to do clear to the left, clear to the right, and I think we're good to go. So I'll just level off at the 1,000 feet, visually maintain VFR till we hit that NDB. Okay, so we're lined up on the runway, our takeoff power, airspeed's alive, temperatures and pressures are looking good. There's 80 knots, we'll rotate. Positive rate, gears up. Okay, there's 100 knots, flaps up. And we're about 400 feet. Start the right hand turn. Bring back my power to 95%. And we'll start to spade level off here at 1,000 feet. So I'm going to bring the power back as we level off. So it is pretty marginal weather here, but we're still VFR for this maneuver. So I'm just going to level off here as we're approaching 1,000 feet. There's our track coming into CGL. Okay, so we'll level off, bring the power back to about 85, that looks good. So I engage the autopilot now. Altitude hold. We'll put it in nav mode because we're maintaining this track here. So we're visually downwind here, and we got to maintain visual for another minute here till we get to CGL. So CGL is just coming up on the nose there. So we're just VFR here right now. Not the greatest weather, but we are still visual. And then once we're past CGL, we're at that 1,000-foot altitude. We can start our climb up to our cruise altitude of 15,000 feet. So I'm going to put 15,000 feet in our, or sorry, 17,000 feet is our final altitude. So there's 17,000 feet. Just coming up to the NDB there. Put it in a flight level change, dial the speed back to 100 knots, and we'll bring the power back up to our climb power of 95%. So gear is up, flaps are up. We'll turn our transponder on, and we'll put it on Elton. So gear is up, flaps are up. T's and P's are good, climb power is set. And we're in nav mode. Out to Barlow, climbing at flight level change at 100 knots, tracking the GPS, so it all looks pretty good. For those of you who've seen my video, I think I flew the Piper Seminole or the Piper Seneca out of here, and I did this same departure using the raw data, using the nav aids. It's just a lot more work. It's a lot easier just using the GPS here, but you can do it just using the nav aids. You can tune the NDB up, tune up the localizer frequency, and fly this approach just using raw nav aids. But it's a lot easier using the GPS, especially with this wind. Right now, look at these winds. We got 22 knot crosswind, so look how much drift we have. So it would be a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging with the raw nav aids if you had to deal with that kind of drift. Anyway, post takeoff looks good. We'll get our fuel pumps off now. And we'll continue the climb. Once we hit about 7,400 feet, we'll make a left turn direct to our first waypoint, which is that 55 north, 130 west. So I'll check in with you when we get to a safer altitude, make that turn, and then we'll throw that in for our direct 2. See you in a few minutes. Okay, we're climbing away nicely here. We're tracking outbound to the SSR, Sister Island VOR, and we make a left turn. I don't really need to go all out that far to make this getting up to 8,400 feet. If we look at the chart, safe altitude here is 5,900 feet in this sector, 8,400 feet in this sector. So I'm going to make the left turn direct to the first waypoint. So if I go to the flight plan here, and then we'll want to go direct 58 north, 130 west. So we'll just go direct to, we'll hit enter, we'll activate that. And now we're in a left turn, so that'll cut a little bit of distance off. and we'll just continue to climb up to 17,000 feet. We need to be above 10.6 before we hit the coast, which is over right around here, and that shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, it's all looking pretty good. We're on our way. So we're going to continue this climb up to 17,000 feet. Luckily, we haven't picked up any ice. I can just see we're getting to the tops of the clouds here. But yeah, luckily we haven't picked up very much ice at all, just a little bit on the engine cowl here, but the wings look pretty clean, the windshield's pretty clean, so I'll keep climbing up. Coming up through 10,000 feet, get our landing light off. And just checking our T's and P's are all good. So I'll check in with you when we level off, and then we'll get a how goes it, how our fuel looks for the flight to Edmonton. We've got a total of about 791 miles to go now, and that's going to put us just about 4 hours and 40 minutes or so. Okay, I'll check in with you when we level off, and hopefully we're above this weather. Well, we're just coming up to our cruise altitude. We're still in the cloud here though. Luckily we're not picking up any icing. It's pretty cold, minus 33 outside. I was starting to lose a little bit of power on the right engine, so I had to put the alternate air on. If you remember, that's a new feature on here. So you just activate that with the co-pilot's left pedal here. And so I was down to about 85% on the right engine, just due to the fuel filter freezing there, and that cleaned that up by putting the alternate air. So I'm just going to leave that on. We're just coming up to our level off now. Keep the power up as we accelerate. Right now we got a little bit of a tailwind component, which is nice. So I'll let the aircraft accelerate as we level off, and then I'll set our 75% cruise power, and then we'll take a look at our fuel. So temperatures and pressures are all looking good. Lights are all good. Starting to accelerate there, so I'll set my power to cruise of 75. So there's 75. We have the alt air on. I'll leave that on. Freezing occurred a lot sooner. Usually it doesn't occur until quite ways into the flight, but it started happening in the climb here. So now let's take a look at our fuel. So we have 80 gallons remaining, just over 80. Got an endurance of 5.5 hours. We got 770 miles to go. True airspeed is 185. That's pretty good. We got a ground speed of 200. 41 minutes to our first fix there. And with this distance, we got a range of 1,100 miles, and we got 770 to go, so we have lots of gas for the trip so far. Hopefully we get out of this cloud, at least we're not icing up. So I'll check in with you a little further along line, and we'll see how the fuel situation is going, see if we can get in some little better weather here. Then let's take a quick look at the weather in Edmonton. Is just forecast for scattered cloud and winds out of the south. Let's see what the actual weather is right now. So there's Edmonton. Winds are 170 at 10, yeah, 20 miles, broken 24,004 degrees, so not bad weather there. Should be pretty good. We'll take a look at that when we get a little closer, and we'll set up our arrival and our approach into Edmonton. So I'll check in with you a little further along, and we'll see how things are looking. Okay, we just broke out of the cloud there behind us. Now in some clear air, looks pretty good ahead. See the mountains out in the distance there, which is why we're at such a high altitude here. A little higher terrain down this way. Just looking pretty good. So, still got the alt air on, still pretty cold outside, minus 34. True airspeed still looks good. We got a little bit of a push right now. It's going to be mostly crosswind though once we get past 58 north. It's all looking pretty good. So as far as the NXI, there was a release out recently, version 11 they're on, And going through the release notes, there's not a lot, there's not really any new features, mostly just bug fixes and just cosmetic changes and stuff like that. Like it now shows yaw dampers active here. We talked about the direct to feature last time, it shows correctly up here. The ETA now shows the estimated time of arrival to your next fix, which is 5830 north. Before it used to show estimated time of arrival for destination, which I kind of preferred. But now it shows the ETA for the next fix. Be nice if they could put that in, but I guess they're trying to be as true as possible to the G1000. So there's not a lot of new features, like cross-track. If you're more than 2 dots off, it shows a cross-check error, things like that. You can read through the different features on the latest release list there, but mostly it's cosmetic stuff and just correcting things like the ETA. So not a lot of new features, like I said, to go over. No new features to go over in terms of just demonstrating some new features, but if anything crops up, we'll have a look at it. What I'd like to see in the future, though, talking about entering these waypoints, so there was another waypoint between the 58 north, 30 west, 130 west, and the VOR, and I couldn't enter it in. It wouldn't allow me to use the coded feature. So the only way to do it would be to create a user waypoint. But if we go to menu, so if we're in flight plan and we go to menu, you can see all the grayed out stuff is not available right now. So a nice one would be to, I think they have a create new user waypoint. So that would be a nice feature to see in the future. So we could create a user waypoint, which we could then insert into a flight plan, which would be a useful thing. So in this case where I couldn't use that coded waypoint, I can't remember what it was, but it wouldn't fit in the flight plan. I could actually create a waypoint based on a lat long, and then I could insert it into the flight plan. So that'd be a nice feature to see in the future. Hopefully that'll come in a future update. Anyway, everything's still looking good. Still got a ways to go. Fuel is still good. Still too early to transfer the fuel. So what I'll do is I'll check in with you when we're about halfway, and we'll look at transferring the fuel and start setting up for the approach into Edmonton. So I'll see you there. Okay, we're just coming up to past the halfway point here, just coming up to the VOR at Prince George, I think it is. No, Fort St. John VOR. Yankee X-ray Juliet. Still clear of the cloud here. Just getting behind the Rocky Mountains. Just head outside here. It's kind of higher elevation plateau area. The main part of the mountains are behind us now. Everything's looking pretty good. Time to take a look at our fuel. So it's time to transfer. Still have 18 in the aux engine and the aux tanks, and we're looking at just over 5 gallons aside in the main tank. So let's go put our fuel transfers on. So left, right aux pumps are on, and we'll get that fuel transfer going. Get how it goes. Looking at, we've got about endurance of 3.5 hours, 600 miles, and we got 361 miles to go. Looking pretty good. Latest weather in Edmonton is 17015, 20 miles, just a few clouds at 12,009 degrees, 2971. So the weather there is not an issue. Based on the winds, I think they're probably going to be using runway 20. So that's probably what we're going to initially plan. And I'll just show you on the chart here what the arrival looks like. We'll load that in a little bit later, but basically planning on the T-tag arrival for runway 20. So just coming in along this way. T-tag, Setbu, Pesco, Vipso, and then it goes down to downwind leg here. Now they have some nice RNP approaches in Edmonton, RNAV RNP approaches, and they link up. They have these nice tangential approaches. So if you're coming in from this direction, you actually link it up via Vipso, and instead of having to go out to Gabbett and in, you just kind of make a nice tangential approach curved onto the final approach here. Starting to see these a lot more in real life, and they're really nice additions. So they take a normal, basically downwind, what they call a short gate RNP approach, to do a downwind entry, and they always had the final approach entry, but now they've just thrown these tangent legs on here, which allow you to kind of cut the corner if you're coming from this direction, which we are, instead of having to go all the way out to Gabbett and make a tight turn and come back in. So those are nice features. You see one on the other side too. And they're based on common routes, arrival routes into certain airports. So that's what we're going to link up to. So that will be the RNP approach we're going to fly into Edmonton. So when we get a little bit closer, we'll get the fuel transfer complete. And then we will load up the arrival and approach, and then do that approach into Edmonton. Luckily the weather is pretty good. After this leg, I think we'll have about 2 more to go. Probably head to Winnipeg area, about a 4-hour flight, and then from Winnipeg we should be able to do Winnipeg to London, back to where we started this whole trip. So probably 2 more legs after this. Still got the alt air on, it's still pretty cold up here. I don't want those engines backing off on me, so we'll keep an eye on that as well, but probably leave it on for the rest of the flight. Otherwise, everything's looking pretty good so far. So I'll check in with you. We'll get a little closer to T-tag, and we'll load up the arrival and the approach, and then get all set up for that. So I'll see you a little further down route. Well, we're over the farmland of northern Alberta, just east of the Rocky Mountains, off in the distance there. It's cleared up nicely. It's pretty much what the weather we're going to expect when we get to Edmonton. And our fuel transfer is done. So left aux fuel is empty, right aux fuel is empty. So we'll go down and turn those off. And then right now, fuel transfer shows aux fuel 0 on both. We've got 2.4 hours remaining endurance, 200 miles to go. So we got lots of extra fuel. So let's load up our approach and our arrival into Edmonton. So if we go down to procedures, and we'll select the arrival first, and we're going to be doing the T-tag 2, runway 20. So that all looks good there. Just compare it. So Dudco and loiter, manual sequence to a heading, that looks good. So we can load this. Okay, next we'll put in the approach. Actually, before we do that, let's just double check the weather. So 19 Zulu, the time right now is 19:57, so we should get a new one soon, but it was 180 at 16 gusting 20 miles. Still good visibility. So we'll plan on runway 20 based on the winds. So we'll pick that approach. And we're going to be doing the RNAV Yankee runway 20. If we go to the approach, we're going to be doing the VIPSO transition off the arrival, so it will be via VIPSO. And we don't need the minimums for this approach because it's good weather. We'll just check the waypoints, VIPSO, BIC, on-goal, runway, misapproaches, Hampo. With a hold, that all looks good. We'll load that. So that is the approach in there, and we'll go take a look at that as so you see it comes in VIPSO, then goes off down there, but we want to link up VIPSO to the approach, so we don't want the rest of the arrival when we get there. So we need to clean that up in the flight plan. So we got VIPSO, but we don't want to do the remainder of the arrival, then we want to link it up to VIPSO. So the easiest way to do that is just clear out these waypoints. So we're going to clear out Dudco, and we are going to clear out LIDAR, and then it's going to go VIPSO to VIPSO. And we don't need the manual sequence either, we want to clear that out as well. So now it's going to go PAJN to VIPSO, which is the fix we want to link it up at, and that's at 8500 of VIPSO, and then off to BIC, on-goal, and the runway. So that closes everything up. So that's one way to get rid of the stuff you don't need if you're going to link up these approaches, because that's how ATC is going to clear you for the approach via the VIPSO transition when you're on the arrival, and they expect you just to link up the arrival at VIPSO. So you don't need to continue on with the rest of the arrival. Okay, so that's all set. So now based on that, we're going to get a top of descent. So the top of descent's in 46 minutes. And we got SEPDU at 19,000 feet or below, and we're already at 17,000 feet, so that's fine. So we'll activate VNAV once we get past SEPDU there, SEPDU. Okay, so that's all loaded up. So when we get a little closer, I'll just review the arrival and approach, and we will brief that, and then we'll shoot the approach into Edmonton. So that's about 45 minutes from now, so I'll see you there. Everything looks pretty good for now. See you in a little bit. One more thing we can do in the flight plan just to clean up the VNAV a little bit is change the altitude at SEPDU. So I'll just show you on the arrival here. So arrival is TTAG SEPDU at or below 19,000, and then VISPO hard at 8,500. So if I look in the flight plan here, it's got SEPDU at 19,000. So we don't want the VNAV to climb up at any point. We want to stay at 17 because that's where we're at now. So the restriction is 19 or below. So let's just amend that to the altitude we're currently at. So if we go down to here, we can change that to 17 and go enter, and you can see it's got the pencil mark beside it. It means it's been amended from what was in the flight plan, and that's fine. So 17 is going to meet that restriction. It's going to set up our VNAV a little bit better because we're already at 17. And there we go. Now it shows top of descent in 40 minutes. So that's when we'll start our descent. You can see the top descent just after TTAG there. So I'll see you there, and a few minutes before there, we'll brief the approach, and we'll start our descent into Edmonton now. That cleans up the VNAV just a little bit, so should make things work a little smoother. See you in a few minutes. Well, we're a few minutes back from the top of descent. You can see the snow line. So I guess it's been a little colder to the north and a little warmer to the south. Most of the snow looks like it's melted. So let's hop in and take a look at how things are going. You can see top of descent is just coming up ahead here after T-tag. So I'll just go over the arrival real quick again. So there's T-tag, we got Sepbu at or below 19, we set it at 17 because that's the altitude we're at. Then PESCO, VIPSO at 8,500 feet. And that's been in there. So then from there, we deleted these waypoints because we're going to link up the approach from VIPSO. So there's VIPSO by the approach, then we come in by Bitka, Ongle, and then straight in for runway 20 with the missed approach straight ahead to Hampo. So that's all encoded in there. The approach starts, the glide path starts at Ongle, and that's at 4,000 feet. So what I'm going to do is dial in 4,000 feet. And then engage VNAV. And VPath is armed, and we're at 17,000 feet. So it's still hard at 17, which is the altitude we put in for PESCO there. Or I think it was PESCO. Just looking at the flight plan there. Yep. Sepbu. Oh, Sepbu. So there we go. And that's just coming right up. And then PESCO has an altitude of 14. That's predicted altitude because it's not in magenta, so it's not restriction. And that's at 14,095, so we should start the descent here momentarily. Still have the alt air on. The elevation of Edmonton Airport is around 2,400 feet. They got nice long runways here. The runway we're going to be landing on is just under 11,000 feet, runway 20. That's because of the elevation in this part of Alberta. So the descent should start any moment. And we should make a nice transition right onto the approach and straight into Edmonton. Let's get the latest weather while we're here. So Edmonton at 20 Zulu, which is 45 minutes ago, 170, 16 gusting 21. Just a few clouds at 18,000, broken at 21,000, 11 degrees, 2965. And we got 2967, we started our descent, so VPath is armed now. Let's put 2965 in, and on our way. So looking good. I'll check in with you as we get via VEPSU there, and we'll complete the approach and finish up with our landing in Edmonton. Yeah, nice day this time of year. Early spring. Okay, I'll see you at the start of the approach waypoint. Okay, we're just coming up to 11,600 feet. Continuing the descent. You see we have the next restricted altitude 8,500 for VIPSO in the magenta there. Got 4,000 set for our altitude. I didn't reduce the power. That allows us to keep the speed up. We can still fly in this yellow band here. It's just above 200 knots is the restricted airspeed. But you can fly in this yellow band if there's no turbulence, no major turbulence or stress on the aircraft. So we'll keep the speed up as much as we can. So it's pretty smooth out right now. We'll stay in the yellow band here. We're just coming up to 10,000 feet. I'll get my landing light on. I'll try shutting off the alternate air. See how the power, so the alternate air has gone off. And the power is staying there okay. Starting to warm up now. We'll keep an eye on that. Then when we cross Vipso, we're going to continue along the approach. We'll just zoom in here. So Vipso does this nice tangential approach right onto final for runway in Edmonton here. The city is just north of the airport, and I think it's over in this area here. So the airport is south of the city. And if you look at the terrain around here, this is pretty much where the prairies start in Canada. Basically east of the Rockies, it's pretty much like this all the way. Farmland and pretty flat, lots of farmland, lots of big farms, all the way till you get east of Winnipeg, so for quite a stretch. So Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba are all pretty much very similar terrain, very flat, lots of farmland. And then the Rockies would be off onto the western part of Alberta. So everything's looking pretty good. We'll keep the speed up still. Start to see the outline of the city over here. So there's some subdivisions over here. Can't remember which river flows through Edmonton. So this is the bulk of the city just off to our left. I think it's a North Saskatchewan river that flows through Edmonton. Downtown would be just in this area right here. I think the population's around 1 million people or so. Yeah, there's the downtown starting to come into view there. And the airport is quite far south of the city. Down over here, right here, I think. Okay, so now we're on the approach through 8500. Start slowing down here momentarily. Yeah, these RNP approaches are really nice. Got some traffic off in the distance there. Yeah, so we're just flying in the outskirts of the city. So some suburbs to the east, or sorry, to the west. And the airport should be right around here. Okay, we want to start slowing down before we get to Bitka, so that's in a couple of minutes. So start bringing the power back to about 50%. We'll just get the speed back into the green band there. There's downtown Edmonton. I don't think they have photogrammetry city for Edmonton. Looks like the kind of Microsoft default scenery. So looking good. Speeds come back nicely. Should see the airport. So there's the airport right there. I think that's the runway we're going for. So the airport's just in this area right here. For some reason our position lights are off. Turn them back on. Okay, I bring the power back a little bit more, bring the speed back. Just coming up to the turn on to final. Okay, just coming up to Bitka, gonna make the turn on to final for Ongle, which is the FAF. So we'll get our gear down. Wait for our speed to come back a little bit. And speed is good, we'll get our first notch of flap. And I'll just keep the power there around 40. So gears down 3 green, flaps are at takeoff or approach, start to make the turn onto final. And I'm going to arm the approach. So that was 1,000 above for 4,000. And I'll just arm the approach. You see glide path becomes armed. And there's runway 1020 right there. So that's the main highway heading south out of Edmonton. And continue to turn on the final here. Just getting a little bit hazy. Good. Again, a really nice transition off these RNP approaches to final. Way smoother than the old RNAV approaches with its standard T at the end. So I'll put the runway heading in, just in case we need it, 200. Our glide path should be coming in soon, and still armed right there. So we have Velt capture at 4,000, and then glide path is still armed, so we'll wait to pick that up. So leveling off, can add a little bit of power so we don't lose too much speed. And there, our glide path is captured now, and off we go, continuing on the RNAV approach. This has pretty decent minimums too. You could get down to 370 feet, which is not bad. Not as good as the LS, but still pretty good. So our speed is good. Put the last notch of flap out, start slowing her down. Get our fuel pumps on. Landing lights are on. T's and P's are all looking good. Shoot for about, keep about 100 knots. It's a pretty strong wind, pretty gusty, a little bit gusty too. So right now it's showing 16 knots. So we say we've been cleared to land, and we're going to take the first exit, and we're going to park just at FBO, just off to the left side here. So T's and P's are all good, gears down through green, flaps are at land, speed is good, lights are good, pumps are on. I think we've got everything. And at this point we could set our missed approach altitude, which is 5,000 feet. We needed to go around for some reason, since we're captured the glide path. Lots of big farms out here in this area. Another small little community to the left of the airport here. Okay, there's 500 feet. Got the airport in sight. Everything looks pretty good. I'll disengage the autopilot. Flight director off. The winds are pretty much down the runway, just a little bit off the left there. Okay, start evening out the speed. Touchdown. Welcome to Edmonton. Okay, just get her stopped here, make this first exit. Okay, your landing light off, or taxi light on, strobe light off, fuel pumps off, fuel heat off. Bring our flaps up. And we'll just taxi off to the left and park at the FBO. Well, some nice weather in Edmonton. Nice not to have to deal with horrible weather again. Wasn't very nice in Juneau, but it's certainly nice here. Anyway, thanks for joining me on today's flight. Hope you enjoyed today's flight. Got to see a nice RNP approach. Nice departure out of Juneau as well. Definitely with the terrain, it's an interesting departure. And I also have a video, I believe it was in the Piper Seneca, if you want to track that down. And it does the departure out of there using old school instrumentation, which makes things a little bit more challenging. And you can see how much easier it is with the new G1000 NXI suite. It certainly makes things a lot easier. Anyway, if you're new to the channel, if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button, really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, sign up for notifications, and then you'll see next few videos I have in this series. Planning on doing some 737 videos when they come out with the PMDG 737. Also taking a look at that BA 146. That looks like a pretty interesting airplane to fly as well. I'd also like to do another flight in the Twin Otter when I get a chance. I was just busy with work the last couple of weeks. I got a little bit of time off now, so hopefully I can finish up this series around the world in the next week or so. And then after that, I'd like to get into maybe some Twin Otter flying before the 737 comes out. So we'll just pull it up here and park, call it a day. Again, thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoy the flight. And we'll see you next time on the channel. Thanks again. Ban it out.